Alright, welcome back. I'm going to start doing Celadon Game Corner, and I think I'm going to talk a little bit about Nostalgia Critic's The Wall, because, as I said before, this is the worst video I've ever seen, and it actually gave me more confidence, even though I still suck at this, and, you know, I don't think my content is quite as good as Nostalgia Critics on a production level, or on a scripting level, or on a care and effort level. This is worse than The Room will ever be, for as much as he criticized that movie back in the day. It is abysmal. This man made a 40-minute review for an hour-and-a-half movie about how that hour-and-a-half movie was long and boring. The review runs for almost half the runtime of the original Wall movie, which is horribly long for an internet review, and has the gall to call the original Wall long and boring. Now, I'm fine. I don't have a problem with criticizing things I like. I myself do it, and I like to hear the opposing view. It's not that he bashed The Wall that, you know, I think is pretty fucking irritating. Differing opinions are fine, and if you want to say The Wall is long and boring, I can get that. If you're, you know, maybe a fan of more extreme music, or it's just too slow for you. I mean, I listen to death metal, and I think Comfortably Numb is still a great song, but not everyone is like that. That's fine. But the bigger problem is when there's no self-awareness for the fact that he is doing the very thing that he's criticizing. The review is long and boring. It's a 40-minute review that almost, it's a musical, and the songs are you know, are parodies of songs from The Wall, which in a way is almost creative, except that they don't review the movie. They just keep saying it's long and boring, and he frequently misses the point of a lot of the songs, which just leads me to believe that he didn't prepare for the review at all. It's just another one of his ego trips, I guess. Very weird. Very weird decision. And I'm gonna heal real fast. I'm gonna go down to the basement. Very, very bold to make a parody of Comfortably Numb about how Comfortably Numb is long and boring, but this was released as an album, and on the album, the parody is longer and more boring than the original Comfortably Numb. There's about 4 minutes in the review, so it's already a long fucking bit. But then the music is, I don't want to criticize whoever did this, because I'm assuming they didn't, maybe they didn't get the script. I'm going to be polite here and say they just got a request for wall covers. And they just kind of made them. But the reviews, or the covers aren't necessarily bad, but they're kind of like local garage band covers of The Wall. They are perfectly good, but I wouldn't use them to back a song criticizing that the original was boring, because they're kind of stripped down in comparison, making them inherently more boring. And then to make them longer than the original and talk about how long the song is just an absurd decision. And to use 4 minutes of that in the review is a terrible idea. That's just a bad idea. But then there are parts where he just didn't seem to understand the point. So there's a part, if you've never watched The Room, there's a clear story going on. It tells the story of someone who has the problems in his life with an overbearing mom, a father who was killed in the war, just horrible teachers, his wife is cheating on him. All these things have led him to cast himself out of society and build a mental wall between him and the world. And that's just the basic premise. And the song about his teachers being terrible goes into a song about the war that his father died in, continuing to happen. This is, Mother and Goodbye Blue Sky, going from Another Brick in the Wall Part 2. And I guess he interprets that as comparing school to the Holocaust, because that's what he said. Although I'm sure that that's not the point Roger Waters was trying to make when he wrote it. And then he goes on to call Goodbye Blue Sky Oscar bait, which the Room, the movie, came out like a decade after the album. So it wouldn't be an Oscar song, it would be a Grammy song, because it was an album long before it was a movie. And even so, I wouldn't call it either of those things. I imagine Oscar bait as like the penny whistle song from Titanic, not Goodbye Blue Sky by Pink Floyd. Very strange. And Corey Taylor's in it, and I don't understand that. For once, I actually, like, internet joke aside, what does Corey Taylor think of this? Because was he aware that he was going to be in the biggest piece of shit I've ever seen? And he makes some points in it that I think are fine. Like his final review, first off, the review is 40 minutes long, and he literally, like, 3 seconds of it is review. And like I understand doing like a 10-minute build-up of criticisms, and then at the end, as like kind of a piss take going, it was fine. Which is kind of what he did, but it wasn't after 15 minutes. It was after 40. It was a short fucking film in and of itself. During which he doesn't review the movie. He says it's long and boring and makes some points that he doesn't get it. And it's not really a review. It doesn't really tell you much. Because at no point during it do you get the idea that he thinks it's okay. And at one point, there's an ad that he does in the middle of this to let you know that the album is available to listen to on iTunes. You can listen to the musical version of this shit review on iTunes. That's how pretentious this is. That's insane. And during this ad he's doing for his own album, he says that it's a love letter to the wall, and at no point does it sound like a love letter. It sounds like bashing. And if you want to bash something, that's fine. You can make a bashing parody. But this is just the wrong way to do he just did everything the wrong way. It's incredible. The only excuse is that it's art. This is like when someone makes bad art. That's all this can be. The only excuse for this is that it's art. Or at least he thought it was when he was making it. Obviously, he's been going in a more cinematic review direction. I want to start by saying I was never a hater of the Nostalgia Critic before this, because I don't want this to come off as, you know, I know a lot of people never liked the guy. I thought he was okay when he was doing the Nostalgia Critic reviews of the clips, and I understand why he can't do it anymore. I get that he doesn't understand how copyright laws work, and he started having to act things out. Okay, fine. I don't think they've been as entertaining, because I liked 15-minute comedic things, and now they're starting to run upwards of half an hour now. At first I thought, like, when I saw the Jurassic Park one, I think that was the first one. It was at least the first one I saw. I was like, alright, that's kind of cute. And then it just had a decreasing value, and I did not give a shit by like 5 in. But then he started doing the... Oh, I made a wrong move. He started doing, like, commentary videos. And they were fine. I actually thought he had some good opinions. Apparently I was wrong, but that happens. I think I want this one. Oh shit. Okay, that's not that bad. Yeah, this one. Had to stop and think for a second there, sorry. But this is just a really bad decision. And then part of it goes into this diatribe about how, like, internet culture makes, like, victim blaming and social media allows victims to blame innocent people, I guess, is his point. And that also the song In the Flesh, the one that has the get 'em up against the wall part. I won't get into some of the other things that song says. That's definitely something that you need context for, but I guess he interprets it as, you know, I think I have to get into it a little because of the plot. The song says horrible things, and it's a representation of Roger Waters and how he felt he was treating the fans, because it was brought upon by an incident where he spat on a fan, and then I guess reflected on that. And he felt like he was being a horrible person, so the song says all these horrible things to the crowd. To the fans, racist things, horrible, awful things, but it's part of the story. And it's part of making you kind of see that this person's becoming a despicable person from this wall. I guess Doug decided that this was about politicians and Margaret Thatcher. I don't really... if there's a source that says that it has anything to do with Margaret Thatcher, I haven't seen it. I think it was Margaret Thatcher, or maybe Mary Whitehouse, or one of those people who just people don't seem to like in Britain that I'm vaguely aware of. But I'm an American, so I'm dumb to all this kind of stuff. But... which is another interesting point that I want to keep that in mind, that he's aware that this is a British album. Because later on, well, no, earlier, but I'll talk about it later, he goes into another brick in the wall. I guess I'm talking about now. He goes into another brick in the wall part 2, and he makes it about how the American school system is failing today, when this is an album about the British school system in, like, what, the 40s? Was that based on World War II? And man, I do not understand what he was going for. Anyway, but he decides that in the flesh, you're supposed to imagine politicians that you don't like. I guess maybe in a way, with how people are reacting to, you know, everyone's a Nazi if they don't like them in terms of politics, you could see putting, like, someone putting someone else's face to this song, but that's also kind of ridiculous. I guess? I don't know. So it's 40 minutes. There's about 3 seconds of review. There is some good animation in this. Not the last segment. He fucking ruined the trial, which I think is one of the most interesting songs on the wall. And one of the most interesting parts of the movie. But God, it's so frustrating because I can't even compliment it without insulting it again. There's a part where it does the iconic, you know, the screaming face coming out of the wall, but it's Doug Walker's Nostalgia Critic face, and it looks pretty good, and it's like a clever joke. And again, there are clever jokes and there are points that it makes that I agree with. Like the opening joke where it's Corey Taylor playing Pink, and you know, it does like the burned cigarette, like it's where the wall starts with Pink like falling asleep and the cigarette's burning down in his hand. This one's Corey Taylor, and the cigarette is comically burned, like the length of the burn on the cigarette's like comically long. Not the most original joke on the planet, but you get it, you know? Trying to remember where I go a little bit here. Anyway, you get the joke, and it's fine. But then there's shit where it's like, so there's this scene where there's the eagle flying just over the planet, and it's supposed to represent, you know, I believe it's supposed to be Hitler's influence and the German military over Europe. But he just has it badly made in MS Paint, and it has the word ego on it. And that looks like the shittiest thing I have ever seen someone animate. I mean, this is supposed to be someone with a budget, and, you know, it looks like he did it himself in MS Paint, and a lot of the green screening looks like shit, and a lot of the special effects look like shit, and this is someone who criticizes movies that looked fine at the time, but have aged badly, and he'll criticize the CG in that, but then just put out the fucking laziest shit. And oh my god, that's another thing. It's so fucking lazy, and he calls the wall lazy at one point. It is so bad. It is so bad at making its point. It is just the worst. No one can hate my content as much as I hate that video, and I will take solace in that. So anyway, There's a scene where he makes the marching hammers into cell phones, which I guess has a point. Again, it keeps coming back to this thing where he hates social media, and I'm wondering if that's related to the change the channel thing. Seems possible. Might not like social media if he got, ripped apart on social media. I guess that makes sense. But, seems a little... It seems like something... Doug didn't take the brunt of Change the Channel. Doug came out looking incompetent. And if you don't know what that is, that's this whole thing where the man I'm complaining about, the Nostalgia Critic, before he was an internet, well, he was a YouTube creator originally, and he was so big that he made a website that competed with YouTube. At the time, he was well known on the internet. Now he's kind of a relic, but he still has a following. And for a time, the dude was huge. A lot of that's died away. He hasn't aged as well as some of his contemporaries, like the Angry Video Game Nerd. But while he was running that, and he had his own creators who he worked with, he didn't just... It wasn't quite like YouTube where anyone could do it. He had to ask you to join the site, or you could... I probably put in an application. I was just a passive watcher, but there were people on there that I would watch occasionally. But last year, a big thing came out against him and the two other people that run the site. Well, ran it. The site barely exists now. You would not know that this was one of the bigger sites on the internet like 15 years ago, but it was. And it laid out all of these terrible things that these three people did, and other people that worked on the site did, and the bottom line is that at the end of the day, it made the two people that Doug was working with, Doug being the man who plays the Nostalgia Critic, and one of the three owners of the site, he came out looking much better than the other two, which was a man named Mike Michaud, who looked like absolute garbage, and Doug's brother Rob, who looked just kind of bad. Doug looked incompetent and ignorant. That's about it. This is a guy that could have recovered from that if he had just shut the fuck up and laid low. And again, instead, he seems to be referencing it in the worst video on the internet. I have no more rooms for items, motherfucker. I also just said no more rooms for items, so I sound like a fucking idiot. So rather than lay low, he made the worst video on the internet. And then release it as a soundtrack on Spotify. Or on Apple. I think you can pay for it. Isn't that great? Don't give this man money. Anyway, I brought up the trial earlier. This looks like absolute shit. And I know it was made by a guest animator, and I know that they, staked out their reasons, I guess, on the internet for why it made sense to them at the time. But holy shit. First off, it looks okay, but not very polished. I wouldn't be surprised if this person was given a very short timetable based on the history, some of the facts that were brought up in Change the Channel about Doug not considering polish and considering time schedules, I think is one way to summarize. But it looked like it was not done. It wasn't finished. I didn't do the thing I left to do. God damn. I'm so fucking distracted, I forgot to actually empty out my items. That just means you get to hear me bitch longer, I guess. I need a drink, hold on. Also, you'll notice that my character's doing some weird shit. For some reason, my D-pad is just extra sensitive, and if it moves even a little up or down, then my character just starts turning and walking into walls. Anyway, I'm gonna make this recording 40 minutes to rival the fucking Nostalgia Critics review of The Wall. That's my goal. Give me 1 second, I don't need the power right now. I don't need any TMs right now. Oops. I would have liked that bicycle, but that's fine. I need some space. Potions might be useful. Let's hit the Arcane and that'll be it. There we go. Okay. I think that'll be enough to get me through. I'm gonna save when I get back down there too. Anyway. This is already coming up on half an hour, and I still just have so much more to say. This was... I know I've said it again and again and again, and I'm repeating myself, but this was such an irritating video to watch. And it's not about him not liking it, because again, at the end, I actually kind of agree with his final analysis as far as the movie goes. It is an okay movie. I like the movie fine. But he goes on to say that it's a little pretentious, but the art is good. And it's creative, and I agree with all of that. It is a little pretentious, and what was his? Oh. Sorry, I'm just remembering more shit. I'm really trailing off here, and I'm trying to get myself refocused, but every time I start talking, I'm like, as soon as I come up with a positive thought, I criticize it again. It's just that horrible. So I was talking about the trial. The animations have nothing to do with anything. While it criticizes that the original's animations have nothing to do with anything, which is also not true. So the animations during the trial, if you ever watched the trial, the monsters in it represent characters that Payne had originally come in contact with. One represents his teacher, one represents his mother, one represents his wife, and the judge represents himself. These are not new characters. They're just in a, comically animated form. Apparently Doug thought they needed fleshing out, as though they were new characters, maybe, and that there wasn't enough of them in the movie. I don't really know. Again, I don't really understand his point, because they are in the movie. They just appearing as monsters now in his, dream that he's having. I guess we'll call it a dream. I don't remember exactly if it's a dream or if it's just like a mental sequence or something, but it's this representation of him putting himself on trial. They're not literally there. And the characters he chooses to show us with this aren't fleshed out and don't look very good. In fact, I would say that they are completely unlike the Wall, in that the Wall characters look very creative, and these are like a generic dragon, what looks like a weasel from Wonderland, but like the Johnny Depp Wonderland. I did that all wrong, but I cannot fix that. Oh well. It's a very strange choice. Very, very bold of you to, do the very thing you're criticizing yet again. What a fucking awful review. So anyway. Hell, I can even see his point that for a lot of people this was a movie that they watched once in high school and haven't thought about in 20 years. I can even see that. Anyway, how about we get to the last joke here? The big punchline, because ending the review with a 3-second opinion wasn't enough of a bad ending. Again, Corey Taylor is in this. Corey Taylor has like one line, which is when the nostalgia. The first ending, the first part of the ending that I completely forgot, where he says, Corey Taylor, Nostalgia Critic's walking down a hallway after the trial part, and Corey Taylor says something along the lines of, "Hey, wait, aren't you going to tell us what you think of the movie?" And Nostalgia Critic says, "I was keeping it vague like the ending of the movie," which wasn't vague. Literally, the ending is narrated to you. He breaks down the wall. The ending is told to you, literally. And then, so he calls the ending vague, which I wouldn't say it is. And then Corey Taylor says, "That's not how a review works." Which is something that he maybe should have been told a long time ago, because Nostalgia Critic hasn't really been reviewing movies for a long time. He's been reenacting them. A lot of the movies that he does, a lot of these new, I guess if you want to call them like cinematic reviews he's doing, don't actually tell you what he thinks. I've seen several that don't really have a review in them. They're him reenacting the plot and cracking bad jokes at the movie. Alright, fine. That's fair enough. He is just, it's a little on the nose there maybe. But Corey Taylor says, you know, that's not how a review works. You have to tell us what you think of the movie. And he does the whole "it was fine." I think it was literally, it was fine. A little pretentious, but the art was good and it was creative. And Corey Taylor says, fair enough. And then Corey Taylor says, he says something along the lines of, like, we have time left, why don't I perform one of my hit songs for you? What could Corey Taylor have played as a hit song? I'm sure you see that there's a bad joke coming. Because, like, you know, I guess you're not gonna get, you're not gonna expect the Nostalgia Critic to get a Slipknot or a, shit. What's the Through Glass band called? Stone Sour Song, you know? The joke is that Corey Taylor does the SpongeBob theme song, and it's the worst fucking thing ever. And it's on the album, and you can listen to it. I don't know why you would. It's the worst video on the internet. You could argue that what I'm doing right now is technically worse. But again, that's kind of like saying that your friend made a home movie that was worse than Suicide Squad. Doesn't really matter. We're talking about the worst fucking high profile video I've ever seen on YouTube. High profile. And something he put a lot of thought and energy into. Like, obviously I've been talking about it for almost 40 minutes. Because I have a lot of opinions on it. But you know what I didn't do? Was write songs about how much I hate it. I didn't get a green screen and make bad animations about how much I hate it. And I'm not going to call this a love letter. I just have a lot of thoughts about it. But, good lord. I hope this finally kills him. Kinda lost me after changing the channel, and now I'm fucking done. This is actually the first video I've watched since changing the channel because I haven't been in the mood to. And I hate to give him the hit. I hate to give him the view. But I heard how bad it was, and I had to fucking see it, and once I started, it was like a fucking train wreck. I couldn't stop watching. And now it's been like 2 weeks, and I can't get out of my head how much I fucking hate this video. It's amazing. The worst thing on the internet. Wow. Anyway, so that gets a really low recommendation for me. Would not recommend. Worst thing ever. That's probably a little bit of an exaggeration, but I think I'm gonna call it, a session here. I've spent almost as long as the review ranting about it, and that's probably more of my time wasted on it than ever needs to be. So, to anyone who found this in a search for people talking about Nostalgia Critics The Wall, I'm sorry that you had to sit through this. You did good. I don't know how the hell you made it this far. To anyone who is still here, I don't understand why. But, I'm going to release all of us from this nightmare, and I'll see you next time.